All right, we're live. It is Thursday, October 5th. This is the weekly developer check-in meeting for Backdrop CMS. PMC updates. There aren't any PMC members here that haven't sent in their agreements for the Software Freedom Conservancy, but I have a feeling that there are PMC members among us that haven't done that. I emailed the lawyer last week to find out how many copies he'd gotten and if we were still short. I have a feeling we're probably still short. I'll follow up with him again this week, but we need to get moving on that. Community, this week we had a new maintainer application, Opie, who's been working really hard in core lately, helping us in particular with Backdrop 1.8. Ported his first module, the geolocation module, and so that's fantastic. Thank you for starting to work on contrib. New contrib projects this week. Smooth Scroll and Text Formatter both have new releases for Backdrop, which is great. And neat. I'm going to talk about releases.
Yeah. So it's been 2 weeks since we had a dev meeting. Sorry, last week Jen and I were out of the country, and so we didn't have a meeting last week. But I think it's worth noting this is our first meeting since 1.8 was released. I think we should, yay, we released 1.8, yay, new minor version of Backdrop. It's very exciting. I know every time we get a new release out, it's continuing in the evolution of Backdrop CMS. And so I think we should all be really pleased with having put out another release. Regarding 1.8, almost everything is done. A newsletter went out just this morning talking about Backdrop 1.8. The blog post is written. Obviously, the release is out there and everything. It came out as expected on September 15th, as usual. Was released based on a date, a scheduled date, and so all of that is great and another successful release. One last thing, there's issue 2849, which tracks all of our progress. Every time we make a release, we make an issue to track all of the things that need to be done. And there's a couple of items lingering on the 1.8 release, pretty minor, actually. Clonos has one item related to updating the roadmap page. We need to update the Docker image, and Jeff's responsible for that. And we need to make the upstream repository for Pantheon updated to 1.8. And the Docker image and upstream for Pantheon, I think our normal process there is normally to wait 2 weeks, and it has now been essentially 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Is that right? Huh. Yeah, it's been over 2 weeks. But we normally wait until we release the next bug fix release, although we haven't really had any items arise as really requiring a bug fix release. So I think that we're probably good at this point to say, let's go ahead and put the upstream for Pantheon to 1.8 as well as the Docker image, and just get everything all officially recommending the latest version. So 1.8.1, the next bug fix release. Like I just said, we don't have any key items that need to be completed in this bug fix release, or at least nothing that would prompt us to cut a new release. However, before 1.8 came out, we put a bunch of effort into finishing up a bunch of crossports from Drupal 7.50 up to 7.56. And there's a bucket load of issues that track all of these crossports. 2013 is 7.50 and previous, and I think that there's only 1 or 2 remaining crossports there. Oh, actually, it looks like there's 1 or 2 pull requests that are out there, but there's still probably a good dozen crossports there. And then Drupal 7.51 through 7.56 are covered by backdrop issues 2774, 2775, and 2776. And all of those also have pull requests, and all of them are more than half merged at this point. So it's great to see those crossports getting completed. And all of them I expect will probably be done by the time 1.8.1 comes out. So we don't have any timeline around when 1.81 might come out, but there will be a lot of cross ports in that bug fix release. There's also other items that we have scheduled for 1.81. There's looks like about 35 or so issues that we would like to have done as soon as possible that are tagged for the 1.81 milestone. Most of those have pull requests, although almost all of them are in a status of needs work. In the current pull request queue, there's nothing RTBC and only 6 items that are in needs review. So where our review log is really short right now. So it's a great opportunity to move pull requests into needs review, and because the queue is completely empty right now, there's a really good chance that that item will get reviewed. That's it, I think, for 1.81. Nothing critical, I don't think, that I feel I need to bring up. Anything from you guys that I may have overlooked? Okay. Yeah, that's exciting. Like, yay, 1.80 comes out and there's no major bugs. So that's awesome. 1.9. Boy, first time we've talked about 1.9 officially like this. 1.9 will come out January 15th, 2018. So that's you know, a good 3.5 months away at this point, which is always the point of optimism when we're like, yay, we can get all of this stuff into the next version of Backdrop, and we all get all of these crazy ideas about everything we want to complete. So it's open season on crazy ideas right now, I think. The only item that we really have slated for 1.9 at this point is there was a lot of functionality regarding better media handling and better image handling in particular that we had hoped to move into 1.8, including the ability to upload a file independently of any content, as well as edit files independent of their content. And all of and a bunch of other items on top of that. There's a meta issue at 1448 that is the media library meta issue. And I think it's safe to say that for 1.9, this is our main focus. It's what's on the roadmap for 1.9, and I think really concentrating on one item at the very least really increases our probability of delivering that functionality. So at this point, that's the only item that we're really that we really have staked out as a high desirability thing. There's other things that we brainstormed in 1.8 that didn't happen. Some things like adding more official translation support to configuration management, for example, relationships to layouts. All of those things aren't on the official docket yet, but of course, if they were to become available or other functionality would become available, then we're always looking to implement as much functionality as possible. So let's see. So how I should have updated the status on these. So the issues on which we are most readily making progress, edit an existing file is issue 2796. It looks like its status is currently needs work. And the primary items that we've got on here is that it needs an upgrade path.
There's also this is edit existing files. Mm-hmm. This has a really strange user experience where when you edit a file, people are expecting something different than what actually happens. We just copied what file entity does, which gives you a fields to rename the file, but it doesn't actually rename the file. It renames the record in the database, which is funny. And then there's also, excuse me, there's also some other weirdness about, like when you replace the file, it it does something weird with the temporary files that's really confusing to people. So I think it needs a user experience pass as well as obviously it must need an upgrade path, but there's some weird stuff going on there that is just completely non-intuitive. And so I think we can figure out how to smooth out those non-intuitive edges. We need to do that before we can get it in.
Yeah, you're right. The file name thing is still really bizarro. However, we had a reroll before 1.8 came out that pushed forward a lot of those issues, especially the temporary file management seems to, I think, largely be resolved. Yeah, we could take another look at that and see if there's still issues that need working out. The upgrade path is actually a lot simpler than it might sound. It really just needs an upgrade path to update the view. So the view needs the ability to have the edit link in addition to right now you can only delete files. And it just needs to be updated to add an extra link. So yeah, but I think you might be right that we might want to work out the file name issue as well. Anyway,
I spent some time trying to figure out how to make the form field that changes what's in the database also rename the file, and I hit a couple of problems with that because you have to rename the temporary copy, and then there's a later thing that renames the real thing, and so it looked hard.
Yeah, I'm also slightly concerned that might actually
break things.
Yeah, because
that was embedded in a node with the previous file name wouldn't link anymore. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And so we could also circumvent this slightly, perhaps by doing things like perhaps just removing that field. Make it so that, or displaying it as an uneditable field, or displaying it as just a label and a value without, just as text, and make it not a field at all. And then that could potentially open the door to Contrib providing that kind of functionality with major caveats that it could break stuff. Or Contrib might be able to handle the complexity of, going through all of the nodes and running regular expressions on the bodies to update the file names.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, that needs some work, clearly, but it is definitely moving along. After that one, issue 2633, which is the ability to upload a file manually. And this one, like you say, Jen, we took the functionality out of file entity module, but it still needs, it could use some reworking to make it less complicated. Right now, the process for uploading a new file is really, it's a big process, and we could probably simplify that down quite a bit.
Right now, it's a multi-step form. So first you upload the file, and then based on the file type, it gives you a secondary field that lets you, or secondary form that lets you fill in any fields that might have been attached to that file. But I think that what we could do is we could do this all in a single file with Ajax. So after you upload it, then it can detect the type and then load in the rest of the form fields as necessary. So it could just be one fancy form rather than being a bunch of separate unrelated forms that you page through. But yeah, again, it's going to take some reworking. And I also wondered how much of that we should do separately from the next issue, 2632, which is fieldable file entity bundles, because the two of them kind of go hand in hand. And originally I thought, if we can just have it be a single form, then we could do it separately because it doesn't matter which order they go in. But it's going to be a lot of work to pull it out into one form, where I wouldn't want to lose the ability of the fieldable file entities. And so maybe it would make more sense now that we know we can do those both in the same release to do them together.
Yep. And that is the next issue I was going to bring up, 2632, which is adding the ability to have files that are fieldable. And this also encompasses having multiple file types, because right now we don't have file types. It's just files are entities, but they don't have separate like types like a content type does or a vocabulary does in a vocabulary or taxonomy module. So those three items kind of form the core of functionality that is somewhat readily available. There's code behind it and progress being made there. But then there's a boatload of other items on top of those that would enhance the media functionality that are all listed in issue 1448. That's all I was going to mention for 1.9 at this point. We're a long ways away and we have a lot of time before us, but yeah, we do tend to get in the pattern of rushing everything at the end. So with these items that have substantial code behind them, I'm hoping that we can make some progress earlier in the release cycle and really put some kick-ass functionality into Backdrop sooner rather than later for 1.9. That's it. There's also the GitHub issue tracker for 1.9 issues. You can check out the milestone on the GitHub Backdrop issues repository. General discussion, we kind of open the floor here. Jen, I'll let you take away the Q&A section if you're up for that.
Sure. So a couple of weeks ago, before 1.8 came out, we had a bunch of really great conversations going on around translation and internationalization. And I thought it might be something that would be good to designate a particular focus for a particular release. So if we're slating 1.9 to be a release that's focused on files and media, maybe we should focus 1.10 on translation and internationalization. I think we would need to identify a bunch of specific issues related to translation and internationalizations that we want to have fixed, whether those are like big picture issues or small little bug fix sort of things. And I'm not sure we have a concrete list of those yet, but if we had scheduled translation internationalizations for Backdrop 10, that might be something where like right now people would start trying to gather together their thoughts and figure out what kinds of things we do want scheduled for that release. So another thought was, Jeff, I'm not sure if you were around for this meeting, if we could pick a site for Backdrop for Good that required translation, that might be a place where we could help identify pain points or areas that needed focus, where we could be benefiting the whole Backdrop community in addition to that individual site. Of course, it would really depend on the people who need the site and if the scope fits, in addition to, it's like we're trying to do good for them. We don't want to not do good for them by trying to do good for us. But if there is a project that has a good overlap, that might be something that might help us choose. Like if we had 8 sites that all wanted to qualify, having one that might help us inform core decisions down the road might be a good choice. We're not at that problem yet where we have 8 sites we have to choose between, but should there be, that was something that came up. So yeah, I'm not sure where we are on that. I'm not sure we need to make a call on Backdrop 10 yet. But I know, Nate, there was that one issue that we've been working on in Backdrop, I think it was 1.7, about trying to figure out how to handle translations in config. That might be something to put on the list for 1.10. And if anything else comes up too, something like language contexts, maybe for layouts or something. Getting a layout relationship thing on there might also be another option for that.
Yeah, you know, something that we've never attempted to do, I don't think, is if we start planning out more than just the next release at a time, then we could make a milestone on GitHub that is not for just 1.9.0, but also 1.10.0. And actually start tagging issues more than one release into the future, indicating that, you know, we could be working on stuff, expecting it to not be in the next release. And I'm not actually sure like what the benefits of doing that would really be, but it's a possibility that we could, you know, use at least for planning at this point, even if we don't use it for development purposes.
Yeah. And then with ours is also this heated issue that came up in the queue about what to do about people who have been trained by Drupal on an not safe way to upgrade their websites, and if we should be supporting improper upgrade procedures just because that's what people are likely to be doing or not. And I think we came to some pretty good consensus around how to solve that problem, which involved allowing people to upgrade improperly if they want to, but doing a better job of letting them know that if they upgrade improperly, they might break everything. Because right now, Backdrop just lets them do whatever they want and doesn't tell them that they're doing it wrong. So how would people even know if they were doing it wrong in the first place? And so we identified 2 places in the update process where we might set a message. One of them would be on the direct update.php like screen. When someone starts an upgrade, if we notice that there are no contrib modules present, that's a good time to set a message and be like, hey, you might be doing things wrong if you're upgrading core without contrib, but not be a blocking thing. Like, we didn't want that to be a requirements check, because sometimes people do like to upgrade things in pieces first before they upgrade it properly later. So we wouldn't want to break that process, even if we wanted to use that moment to let people know that upgrading core without contrib might not work. And then there was another idea about if an upgrade failed because it's not able to meet an individual module's update dependencies, we could do a better job of letting people know which upgrade failed and which dependency wasn't met, where right now it just skips it entirely. And so nobody would even know if that upgrade failed or not until it was too late. Like, their site's finished and they think they're done, but then it's not working. So I think if we can kind of do a better job with messaging around those 2 points, we can continue to let people use the processes they're using now. And if they are in one of those lucky scenarios where none of their contrib modules have dependencies on core, then they'll be fine. They can continue to do it the way they're doing it. But if they are using a contrib module that does need to be upgraded in a particular order, they'll at least get notified by the system that there's a different way to do it. So we created a bunch of issues in the core queue about where the messaging should happen. And then there's also another issue about whether we should provide legacy data mappings table, which it sounds like the current status on that is no, but I want to leave that issue open to see if there are other people who are doing contrib ports that felt differently about it. So this is for things like taxonomy, vocabulary IDs, and user role IDs, which are deleted in the Backdrop, Drupal the Backdrop upgrade. The taxonomy vocabulary IDs are renamed to vocabulary underscore whatever the ID is, and the user roles are exactly the same. It's the same role ID in both places. But some people might want a mapping for whatever reason to order to get from one to the other. So if there was something else, like I don't have any good examples, but if there's something else that needed to be mapped, we could save that data in a database table so that it would be available for other contrib modules to use during the upgrade process if they didn't want to depend on the particular order of operations. But it sounds like there's not been a huge consensus on whether we need that or not yet. So we should leave that issue open for a while longer.
Yeah, you know, this brings up something that's bothered me for a while, in that updating your Backdrop site, an existing Backdrop site from like 1.7 to 1.8, for example, looks exactly the same as upgrading from Drupal 7 to like Backdrop, like the major upgrades. And I think that we could definitely improve it to make it so that it would be clear if you're doing like a major version upgrade that things look different and function different than if you're just doing a day-to-day, minor update. Things like identify if modules are missing, and let people know that we're going to disable that module if they don't have it, and like show them a list of like, these are all the modules I expect to find, and tell them like which modules actually were found and which ones are missing, and say, if you don't include them right now, they might not upgrade and they definitely will be disabled. And give people like a better process for upgrading from Drupal, or ultimately like Backdrop 1 to Backdrop 2. Yeah, because right now, like even our update page, update.php, tells you to do stuff that doesn't make any sense right now for a major upgrade, like back up your config directory, config directory doesn't even exist yet. So it's like there's no need to back it up. It's not even there. Yeah. So yeah, that'll probably be an inevitable consequence of this endeavor to make it so that we give people better messaging if they're upgrading from Drupal. We'll probably end up rewriting that entire page because it doesn't make any sense the way it is now. I think we're just kind of stuck. We're just so used to desensitized to how bad the process is because it's the way it's always been for all versions of Drupal previously. It's that update.php just looks a particular way, and that's it. But it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I love that idea. How would you detect major versus minor? Would it just be based on like old schema version?
Yeah, probably schema version. Yeah.
System module or something?
Yeah, in system module.
Okay.
We also could even get smart about things and actually tell people, like when they're running an upgrade, hey, you're upgrading from this version to this version. And it would be a little bit weird to do it in a backwards compatible manner or like in a straightforward manner, but we can map system schema versions to backdrop version numbers, for example, and say like you're going from this version to this version. But that would require every version of backdrop have a
system module update hook.
Yeah, maybe that's not the greatest idea, but we could at least do that reliably for major upgrades because every major upgrade is going to have a schema change.
Sounds good. Can you write that into the issue if I find the issue for you?
Yeah, I was gonna, like, rather than talk about it, find the issue and type it, but yeah. So yeah, let's find the issue, and you can post it into the agenda later or into Gitter. Gosh, the sun is. I think that's it for this meeting. Let's wrap it up, and yeah, thank you everybody for watching our regular weekly dev meeting. If you're out there watching, feel free to join. It happens every single Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, and we love having people join. You can keep track of this meeting and when it occurs by joining our Gitter channel or by following us on Twitter. And so that's it for this meeting. Thank you everybody for joining, and thank you guys for watching as well. So thanks, and we'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.
Bye.